Welcome back to Extra Points, a podcast from Crosspoint Baptist Church. As we just kind of talk about what's going on in our world, recap sermons, different types of things. We took a week off after Easter with the busyness and craziness of all of it. It was a lot for me, and I'm sure you as well, Jim. But today we're back down the pipeline. We have lots of good episodes coming. But for now, how are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah. It's been a good week so far.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? How are you doing?
I've been better. Like yesterday was the March Madness final game, and we were planning on going to Jenna's parents and spend time with them. We'd planned that for a while. As I'm about to leave, early in the day, I got really lightheaded to the point where I'd stop everything I was doing and lay down for a couple hours. I ate and did all this stuff. Felt a little bit better, and then I was sitting in the car and I was just queasy and lightheaded. I didn't feel comfortable driving, and so I stayed home and Jenna went over there. So that was I laid down again. So I'm sick or just something's going on with my brain, but I think it's allergies, a mix of different things. So that's been not fun.
Yeah, that's not fun.
And that been relatively fine.
Good. You're feeling better today?
Feel better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure still. My ears are popping and all that. But other than that, I drove here, so safe.
Yeah.
I woke up very early this morning. I was like, so I've been here for a while, which is not. I don't usually come in at 7:45, 8 o'clock, but I was like, I'm just gonna come in. But yeah, we got 5 questions today. These were all from the online question box. But what did you think of March Madness this year, women's and men's?
Oh, it was great, wasn't it? I'm a big Caitlin Clark fan. She's amazing.
She's awesome.
So it's fun to watch her and watch how she tries to, not just tries to, but she just she kind of is unselfish, right? So she can score from 25 feet out.
Yeah.
She'll also look too. So it was good, and they ran into a better team, and same thing with Purdue last night. I mean, UConn was pretty much they're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, but most of the March Madness, I don't think it was as crazy with upsets. There were upsets.
There were, just not.
Not as many as normal. But it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was. I mean, anytime UNC loses, it's a bad year. But taking that aside, uneventful on the men's side, definitely more eventful on the women's side. With obviously Caitlin Clark is amazing. A couple girls on UConn are really good, and then that South Carolina team is it's one of the most impressive college basketball things ever. The fact that they've lost 3 games in 3 years, they've won 2 titles. It's awesome. And then UConn is the best team in a while in college basketball. They're very, very good. Very fun to watch. They're tied for 3rd in titles with Carolina.
Oh, wow.
At 6. So, but yeah, uneventful, but still good. It's still college basketball. So, what is your favorite number and why?
So when I was younger, this became my favorite number. Playing sports and stuff, I always wanted to get 00.
Oh, wow. I never heard that.
Just because I thought it was cool, right? Yeah. Not everybody has that. And so...
That's funny.
Yeah. So then when I got older and we played City League softball...
Did they have those numbers?
A lot of times they did, or at least 0, right? Okay. So if I couldn't get 00, I'd be 0.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I've always liked that number. And that's just for, a jersey to wear.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So Damian Lillard, that was a good jersey to have.
Right,
The letter O, the number 0.
Yeah.
Mine has and probably always will be 15 because I wore it all through high school in basketball and middle school too. But I love North Carolina, obviously. And when I was 9 or 10, I didn't have a favorite basketball players Michael Jordan or whoever was on the Celtics, whatever. But I didn't have a favorite player, and this was when I was getting into basketball, and we went to North Carolina on a trip with my dad, and we were watching the 100-year anniversary game, which was really cool. But every basketball player was there. Jordan was there. All these players, and we were in this shop called Johnny T-shirt. And it's like the Carolina clothing store basically on campus in Chapel Hill. And where we're walking out, in walks Vince Carter. And so I met Vince Carter, and I met a guy named Antoine Jameson, and I connected more to Vince Carter and watched him play. And then I looked up all his highlights, and he was obviously amazing at dunking, all these things. And he was number 15. And so ever since then, I was like, that's my number, and that's my favorite. And he's my favorite basketball player too. So it all kind of mixed together. But what does your Sabbath look like?
That's a big jump, right, from basketball.
I know. Favorite number to Sabbath.
Yeah. So like you, I have Fridays off, and I try as much as possible. That's a dedicated Sabbath for me.
Right.
And of course, it doesn't always work. I mean, there's wedding rehearsals on Friday. There's, we have an event Saturday, and so I'm helping set up on Friday.
Yep.
But for the most part, I turn my phone off. I don't answer emails or texts. And I kind of do what I want to do, not related to work,
Yeah.
So it's usually the normal kind of morning routine for me, working out and doing devotions. And then a lot of times I go to Starbucks for an hour or two and read. I'll take a nap on Friday.
Yeah.
And it's just it's really a recharging day. I don't think about my message. It's done Thursday night. I'll look at it again Saturday. But
yeah.
So it's just really been something I've been able to be consistent with over the years, and I've enjoyed that every Friday.
Yeah. I never had a Sabbath until, a little bit, but until I started working here, because it's like I have a dedicated day off for this. Mine's similar to yours. Obviously, it's Friday as well. I get up in the morning, do devotion, reading, whatever. I don't usually eat breakfast on a typical day. Like this morning, I had like applesauce and some yogurt. And I'll make like bagels, or I'll make eggs, I'll make bacon like on Friday. So I'll give myself a real breakfast.
Yeah.
And then I'll read a book. I typically take that day to write something. Like I like writing. And so I'll try to write like a podcast episode, or write something like that, like not this podcast, but and then I'll watch like a movie that I feel like is going to be life-giving, that isn't like a kind of turn your brain off, just consume it, but like I intentionally am picking these movies based on people I know that recommend them, or different Christian theologians that love these movies for these reasons, so that I could use my brain and kind of like worship through that. I'm very intentional about the movies I watch on a Friday, but and then I spend time with Jenna and just hang out. But if you could domesticate another jump, right? Number to Sabbath to this. If you could domesticate any animal and have them as a pet, what would it be?
So I have an answer for that, and then a story to tell you about that.
Great, let's hear it.
My favorite animal, the answer to this would be a tiger. Ooh. And so I love tigers. And I was when I was in youth ministry, even before we moved to the Northwest, so it's my first job back in Ohio, we were part of a youth kind of rally, they used to call them, and there were a bunch of youth came together from different places and had, a worship week. And the people that where they were doing music, they owned kind of a store, kind of secondhand store, and I went to visit them in preparation for this week of preaching, and they're doing, leading worship. And they had this huge Bengal tiger rug up on their wall. And I thought it was so good. So I told them, I'd like to buy it. And they're like, no, Pastor, we're just going to give this to you. And so they gave it to me. And I took it home, and my intention was that we would hang it up on the wall because it looked so great on the wall. That was my intention, not Sonia's. And so we ended up deciding that it would be a really good rug for our utility room. And that's where it's been like my whole adult life. It's still down there, right?
Is it like real Bengal tiger?
No, it's just a picture, of the pattern of it.
So cool.
Yeah, so that would be... So if I could have one of those as a pet, and
it could not kill you,
and it could not kill me, then maybe I'd go for that.
Right. Yeah, tigers are awesome. I'd probably go lion, probably, in the same realm, as like a big cat. You know, they're cool. They're very awesome. And I see videos of like these trainers that like have been with these lions since they were like babies, and so like they walk up to them and they'll bump them on the nose and they'll like growl at them, but not gonna like making noise at them. And I'm like, that's literally, oh, they're so cool.
Yeah, lions.
And I also would love a red panda. I think they're adorable, but I don't know if they're like I know they're not able to be domesticated because they're like not common. But like I don't know if that would actually try to hurt me or not. You know,
fine.
But who knows?
Yeah.
And what is something you think is underrated?
I think about this at church a lot. Just showing up. Like there's more to it than just showing up. There are people that show up to church every week and aren't really necessarily growing. But I think we underrate the importance of individually and corporately of just being faithful and being there and being counted on. And so I just think that's a huge thing. And it's true in every area of life, right? Any job you might have, church, even with sports, right? Just showing up and putting in the work. I was reading this story about Mookie Betts, who plays for the Dodgers, and how they, every spring training, all these teams, they want their baseball players to be in a little bit of shape, and so they run, and everybody just kind of jogs, right? But Mookie Betts he sprints every time. And I thought, there's someone that's showing up, right? He's not just physically there, but he's all in, and obviously, you can build a great church off of people that are all in for Jesus. So,
Yeah, I was going to say two things. One is like yours, more spiritual. One's just a personal dumb thing. But the one I was thinking of is like, I think it's underrated to like collaborate with like other churches and just ministries in the area that, maybe we're not, fully... Like, they're not a Baptist church, but I think it's cool to, like, hey, you come speak for me, I'll come speak for you. Hey, let's do this worship night together. I think that's really cool, and I think it builds a lot of unity within wherever you are, to then truly be living out this, this goal that every church says that we want to make disciples, we want to build the kingdom of God. So we want to do that, obviously, with everyone around us, so... Not just building up our church, but building up God's church. So I think that's underrated. I love doing that. And I think going to movies by yourself is underrated. I think everybody should do it one time.
Yeah.
I swear it's therapeutic. It's great.
I'm good if I have Skittles. So I'll go to a movie by myself or with a bunch of people.
As long as you have Skittles.
As long as I have Skittles.
That's great. Skittles are... the candy... Mike and Ike's. That's the one I...
Oh, okay.
I love Mike and
Ike's. Not bad.
But yeah, we love doing these 5 questions, whether they're serious or not. They're fun discussions and just answers. So if you have questions, link in the description or the box in the lobby at church. But as we continue to get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, we're going to be talking about something that happened yesterday as we're recording this, but as you're listening, potentially 2 days ago, it happened on Monday, April 8th, and it was the solar eclipse. And there's a few questions regarding this, but first, Jim, did you look at the pictures or...
Saw a lot of pictures. I was actually going over to Starbucks, taking a study break to get a coffee and come back. And during the time, and of course, this typical Northwest day, it was cloudy, and I didn't see anything anywhere. So
yeah, I didn't see a thing. I saw pictures, but my parents are in Texas, and so they got to fully see it.
Yeah.
My mom took my little brother out of school and all this stuff. So
yeah, I knew some people that in my biking spin class at the health club that they bought tickets to go to Texas, and they spent a lot of money to watch the solar eclipse, and then they were kind of freaking out towards the end of last week because the weather the forecast was for clouds, but I saw some great pictures from Cleveland, which is where we grew up, and it was a big event there, and it was pretty amazing pictures.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Some of them, like they're cool. Like the ones my parents took, they're like cool. But like you see the ones that are taken from these crazy cameras. I'm like, this is like, wow, that's really crazy.
Oh.
But the real reason this is being discussed today is not because of how cool the solar eclipse looks, although it's pretty cool. But the last week or two, I don't know if you've seen this. I've seen it quite a bit. But there's a lot of commentary in Christian circles via social media, maybe word of mouth, different things like that I've heard about around the apocalypse, the end time, Jesus' return. It was said that it's fulfilling many biblical prophecies. For example, one of them, the path that it took through the United States, went over a couple towns in the Midwest named Nineveh, ironically enough. And this was fulfilling the sign of Jonah. And there's other various things that, I mean, this is the whole thing. But the question that I have is, why are so many Christians fascinated or potentially obsessed with end times and making these claims?
Yeah, it's really, it's something to think about, isn't it? It's crazy to me, a lot of the things that we hear whenever, I mean, you were you not born when Y2K happened?
Yeah, I was born in 99.
Okay, so you remember this well, right?
Yeah, like yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a lot of commotion about that, and it wasn't just coming from non-Christians. A lot of it was coming from Christians. I think there's something innate with us about wanting to know the future and how things are going to work out.
Right.
And it is kind of fascinating because it's not the world that we normally live in. But of course, the problem is that Scripture's taken out of context.
Yeah.
People find something in the Bible and they automatically just apply it to what they see happening in the world, and that's really not the right way to do that.
Right. Yeah, there was I have a buddy who sent me one, and he didn't believe this was happening, but he's sending me all these crazy things he's seeing, and one of them was there was the earthquake on Friday in New York, and it was a 4.8 earthquake, and then they're like, this person was saying like 4.8 earthquake, it's happening on 4.8, and then Revelation something 5 something was like,
well, it should be 4.8, you know, but they're gonna keep this thing working.
I know, and it is like this. There's going to be a big earthquake before the sun goes dark, and then Jesus. I was like, yeah, it's so weird, like, because like you said, it's all taken out of context, and then like the day after, everyone's like, oh no, we mean this. We mean 40 days later after this happens. But when it comes to these end times, Jesus' return, what do we know from Scripture?
Well, I mean, the thing that is really significant is that we are living in the last days, but the last days refer to a period of time between the first and second coming of Christ.
Right.
And so we're getting closer every day. We know that. Yeah. We know that Jesus is coming back. And, of course, there's all different opinions about how he's going to come, when he's going to come, what's going to happen before and after and during. And really, I think those are good things to think about. But, you know, even like we preached through Revelation, I've been avoiding it for 25 years. So we did that a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I loved it. But at the same time, I just think there's a lot in the Bible that we don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
Right.
And so we want to live in preparation for his coming and be ready and be diligent about fulfilling the Great Commission until he comes. We just know he's coming. That's all we know.
Right. Yeah, that was on Sunday, we do the first, third, fifth, we do youth. And so we were in there and we played a couple games. Then we were talking about the road to Emmaus, because it was after Easter and that's what we were talking about. But we were talking about that, and then we got into the conversation about the eclipse, and because they see it on social media and they were asking me about it, and I was like, they're like, do you think the rapture, or do you believe this? And I was like, here's what I'm gonna say. Like, one, I haven't studied nearly enough to like give them like an answer, but I was like, the one thing I do know is he's returning at some point, and I believe that, and that's what matters, is you believe and you live as if he is going to return, and you're waiting and anticipating that. What's interesting about his return is he says, and I believe Matthew, he says, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. So does Jesus really not know the day or the hour?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, right?
Yeah.
And then one of the things, and I haven't thought about that for a long time, but one of the things I remember reading about that is that, here's Jesus. He said that when he was in the flesh.
Mm.
And I think that there are things that he chose not to know or to do
Yep.
that he could have, because he is God. He could
Right.
know everything and do
Yeah.
it, and he does know everything and can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a number of examples. And so that's kind of how I've always approached that. Not that the son doesn't know, but kind of the point there, it's almost hyperbole a little bit, is, hey, why do you claim to know
Mm-hmm.
if God's son doesn't,
Right.
choose to know? So why do you think you know?
Right. No, I agree. I think that it's it's a it's a funny thing to hear Jesus say, knowing that, it's like just 1/3 of the Trinity not know when this is happening.
Right, yeah.
So it's probably more complex than we understand, which is one of my favorite traits about God, is incommunicability. You just you don't know. There's a lot of things we do know, but a lot we don't. And then lastly, how should we be living in light of this reality that we don't know when, but it will happen? Should we look for signs in Revelation and point things out, or what should we do?
I think that, and we may have talked about this on another question on one of our podcasts, but I read somewhere there's 189 kind of prophetic places in the New Testament, and 164 of those are all in the context of how we should live a godly life. And so it seems to be that the purpose of prophecy and end times teaching is not to fill our brains up with all this cool stuff that's going to happen in the future,
Right.
but is to be motivated to live a godly life now. And one of the great passages in 2 Peter 3, it talks about how the current heaven and earth are going to be destroyed with fire. And then right after that it says, so what manner of people ought you to be, and living a holy and godly life? And it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of summarizes all those, 90% plus of those prophetic passages are designed to. It seems like the end times is not designed to tickle our fancy, but to get us living in such a way that we're ready for the end times.
Right. Now, that's a good point. I agree. I think that it's speaking to, we should be living a certain way, right? You should be living in light of this reality, not, all right, the Bible says this, this, and this. Let's get our radars on and be checking every single which way about, what's to come.
Yeah, and we've seen it with the Hamas war with Israel, in Gaza. People are trying to, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be controversial here, but a lot of Christian people are like, "Oh, support Israel, support Israel." It's like, well, God's in favor of that. That does talk about that in the Bible, but Israel is largely rejected Jesus,
Right.
and they're not always righteous in all the things that they're doing. And so again, I just fear that too many Christians are living out of a sense of ignorance to what the Scripture teaches, or they're taking it out of context. And so it's for all kind of things. We've always had earthquakes, and Jesus talks about how the end times there'll be, more earthquakes, and there'll be wars and rumors of wars, and all this stuff has been happening for centuries.
Long time.
Yeah. So to point out one and say, oh, well, this is a sign of his coming, I don't think that's the point.
Yeah.
Especially when Jesus says clearly that no one knows.
Yeah. Not that we shouldn't. Yeah. Not that we shouldn't notice things or be paying attention to what's going on in the world or what happens with said prophecies in the New Testament, but it's more of keep it on the back of your mind, but don't let it fully just be at the forefront, because then it just feels like wasted anxiety. It feels like fear mongering. Some of these claims that are made on social media, it's like there's people that don't understand the Bible that are just end up being terrified for a week straight, and then it happens, and they're like, "Oh, it didn't happen." But
or it doesn't happen, and they just dismiss Christianity altogether.
That too.
We heard this from Christians who say this is from the Bible.
This pastor said that we're going to have some divine encounter on April 8th. And I mean, my divine encounter was in a coffee shop reading the Bible, so it wasn't Jesus returning. I didn't hear any trumpets. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Today, I didn't think of a movie recommendation. I forgot. So off the top of my head, go watch The Incredibles, Pixar movie. It's great. It's fun. It's one of my favorites. So, but yeah, that's all we got today.
Very good. Thanks, Rye.
Yep.